Okay, so I'm Matt, and some more team building today. Something a little bit different. I'm part of a PvP group called Jim, and I'm joined today by Nick, who's also part of that group. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Good. Thanks. Describe it as a PvP group. Perhaps that's not the best way of describing it. Perhaps a cult with a PvP element is perhaps.
Yeah, that's probably the finer way of putting it,
Yeah,
especially with how Mike preaches it.
yeah, but it's a lot of fun. And one thing that is done in this group is a monthly custom meta, which we're going to do a bit of team building for. I think what's interesting about this is that the Sylph metas, they often come out with like infographics and stuff as to what beats what, and here we've got nothing like that. We're just relying on our brains and knowledge here. And you've been involved with Jim for a while, and do you help create some of the metas as well?
Just some constructive input. I'm not the best. I feel like I would make things too lopsided or favor too many typings that are like my favorites. Like I love the ghost typings, and I would want to try to build metas around them being legal, or at least some favorites of mine always being legal. So, for the most part, like the mods sometimes will reach out and ask, does this seem balanced, or does this seem like it favors one particular Pokemon too much? Like if you pull up our rankings and you see something at 100 at the top and then the next closest is like in the 80s, what can we do to make this a bit more balanced?
Right. Okay. So yeah. So clearly someone that's trusted within the community, who's an experienced player. You've also won your regionals, or
Yes. I came in second in season 1 regionals when I went to Syracuse in New York, and then season 2 we actually got one here in Buffalo, where I'm from, and I managed to blow the sweep in the 5th round. I botched it, and then won the tiebreaker first round because it was a 3-way tie. Won the first tiebreaker, and then met the same guy that beat me, and managed to adjust and 2-0 him, and then call it a day because we were both starving.
Nice. So yeah, we've got really interested to see what you make of this meta. We've had a quick chat before, and then I think we're on similar sort of lines, which always makes me feel more positive about things when I know there's other good players thinking the same way.
You're the elite. You're making me feel better.
It works both ways. So the rule set for this meta, it's a strange one. Well, it's not strange. Yeah. It's a little bit strange.
The majority of them tend to be strange, but I honestly feel like I wish we could kind of like subcontract some of our guys to Sylph to see if maybe that would amplify some of the metas. So, I mean, everybody has their likes and dislikes. I didn't like Forest. A lot of people did, but maybe if they expanded a bit, like they could try to pursue this. And I don't really know going forward how they're going to keep spicing it up. 2 full seasons almost in the bag, and like they've got to be running kind of low on ideas. But with new Pokemon constantly coming out, I guess it does re-spice things up.
Yeah, I mean the difference between Sinister Cup now and Sinister Cup 7 months ago, or however many months ago it was, 9 months ago. Yeah. It's just almost, well, it's not unrecognizable, but there's different staples now.
Yes.
But this meta, it's Bug, Psychic, Fighting, Dragon, Steel, and Fairy.
Mm-hmm.
But you're only allowed 1 Steel and 1 Fairy. And there's bans which are Azumarill, Deoxys, and Galarian Stunfisk as well.
Yes, with the that one note that you can pick 1 Fairy, 1 Steel, or if you pick Mawile, it counts as both.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So I started off by putting the types into PvPoke and in the custom rankings, just to see what it was looking like. I noticed immediately that the Steel types were high up, with Jirachi at 3, Bronzong at 4, then 7, 8, 9, 10 is Forretress, Scizor, Wormadam Trash, and Genesect. And then beyond that, we've got the dragons that are good, and we've got the psychics that are good, and Scrafty's up there as well.
Yes.
And I think seeing what was up there, I think it became clear to me very early on. and Altaria is number 1, which is also a huge factor to consider. It became clear to me that I really wanted a steel and a fairy, not Mawile. I didn't want a steel type that lost to fighters, for example. I didn't want a fairy type that lost to fighters.
I was gonna say, so you're not taking a steel then? Okay.
Yeah. So, I decided I didn't want Mawile.
Right, because
I mean, go on.
I said the only benefit that I could see to the Mawile pick is probably a point that you're about to make, is that there's very limited fire damage for the steel typings. Fire Fang's okay, but that's really all that Mawile's got going for it, is the fast attack damage.
Yeah.
The typing's very unique, but it's just that.
Yeah, and I think with Scrafty being so high up on the list, if you're using your fairy type, if your fairy type isn't able to take on the fighting type, then you're normally relying on confusion for Scrafty, for the fighting types, and you can't rely on confusion to take out Scrafty.
Nope.
So I think Scrafty almost in itself is what put me off the Mawile. Zweilous to a lesser extent as well. I mean, it's less of a clear matchup. I mean, I imagine Mawile probably beats Zweilous, but it's not the matchup you'd want a fairy type to have with Zweilous. So I then removed the steel types and the fairies from the custom list, just to see how that changed things. So let's wait for that to go up. And there we see the psychics dominate with the dragons. And that's good, because if I know I want a steel and a fairy, that solves that problem to a certain extent.
True. It's just all about playing the switch out games, calling the leads, which is more the fun aspect of it instead of the headache of team building.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, so with that in mind, there's the potential for this method to become a sort of a rock, paper, scissors almost between dragon, fairy, steel. And so my first port of call in any meta is to try and figure out what I can do to avoid being caught in rock, paper, scissors. So that's why for this month I decided to build my team around Poliwrath. Because with it being fighting type, it's going to beat the majority of the steels. I think Skarmory is the only one it doesn't beat. Certainly the only popular one that it doesn't beat.
It better not be popular.
Skarmory. I mean, the other steels I looked at. The steels I looked at were Skarmory, Probopass, Bastiodon, Berserker, Melmetal, Excadrill, Escavalier, and Registeel. And so other than Skarmory, quite happy with getting Poliwrath against any of those. And it also takes on the dragons as well, because of the fast ice punch to get to Altaria, and the stab dynamic punch to get to Zweilous.
Ice punch still works against Zweilous too, but you stab. Good call.
Yeah, and it's not the double weak like Altaria.
True.
But yeah, if you're in a pinch, you could finish it off with a nice punch.
Yeah.
Sure.
Dual coverage. That's a nice flex. I actually kind of like that.
Yeah. So that ultimately that gives me options against the dragons that aren't the fairies. So I don't have to run a dragon counter that's going to be terrified of running into the steels if I don't want to, which the fairies would be. I mean, Poliwrath isn't the hardest of dragon counters, but it'll do the job.
With an energy advantage, I think it's a decent soft check, depending on which one it is.
Yeah. I think it beats Altaria in the 1s and the 2 shields. I can't say for sure that I'm well versed in the Zweilous matchup, but I'd like to think I'd like to think it'd be comfortable enough, and I don't expect to see much Zweilous, to be honest. I think Altaria is probably a better shout, generally speaking.
I mean, you do get paired against Trudy an awful lot, so you might run into the Zweilous.
Yeah, I do. I get paired with Trudy a hell of a lot. so that could well come up to bite me in the backside. So yeah, knowing that this first part of my team is weak to Skarmory, I now know that, well, it is weak to Skarmory and the fairies. So that's going to place. It's going to mean that the steel type that I pick needs to beat Skarmory comfortably and needs to beat the Charmers comfortably, which I mean most steel types do. But that immediately rules out a couple of the steel types for me. It rules out Berserker because with Shadow Claw, Wigglytuff will beat you.
That Berserker just seems like it's a great steel type. I love it. I've been trying to hatch a good one for Ultra League because I've seen a lot of people have been using it for Ultra. But it strikes me as that steel type that doesn't beat the types it's supposed to beat.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of the desired moveset. It doesn't really have something strong. The ideal moveset's the Shadow Claw, Close Combat, and Foul Play, all of which don't really... the fairies tend to laugh at it.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a legitimate option in its own right, but I think you'd have to build around Berserker. It's not something you can slot into a team easily. Certainly not as your only steel type.
So and then this meta,
so that ruled it out for me quite quickly. Same with Excadrill and Escavalier as well. Don't want them to get caught up against the Togekiss, running counter or Mud Slap. So that left me with the more traditional steel types, if you want. Probopass, Bastiodon, Melmetal, and Registeel. All will do the job of beating Skarmory and the fairies, so I'm just going to go with Registeel because it picks up the others in that group. So it seems like a sensible thing to do.
I think Melmetal might be the only close one that has a chance against Registeel, and that's, I'm pretty sure, after you have to land 2 superpowers.
Yeah.
Because one, it's just not as much of an oomph attack, but at least it's super effective. It chunks it. But you need to land 2 before Reggie. Honestly, if Melmetal throws first, you could go Flash Cannon because of the defense drop.
Yeah, and superpowers never one I'm comfortable messing about with. I'm much more comfortable with close combat, to be honest, because certainly with something like Melmetal, which isn't the tankiest thing in the world, I'd rather just take a 2-stage defense drop and know I'm still doing a buttload of damage. But after one attack drop, superpower doesn't really seem like that good a move anymore.
Yeah, if you shield the first one, you're set.
Yeah.
And even if they, because I've had this issue when I used to lead Melmetal a lot in Ultra and Great League, Registeel. Even if they shield a Rock Slide bait and then you hit land a superpower, you really didn't do that much to KO them.
Yeah.
You might have chunked off maybe 40% of their health, and they're gonna blow past you in energy. Yeah.
I think again, it's certainly an option here, and anywhere that it's allowed, it's definitely an option. I'd be tempted to see that as a sort of a different. I'm struggling for words here. So you know how Bastiodon and Probopass share the same typing, but Bastiodon has Probopass has the Thunderbolt, the electric coverage to take on waters, which can be difficult for steels.
I'd use that in regionals.
Fair, yeah. I'd be tempted to. Melmetal would appeal to me more in a situation where there are lots of water types running around, because I think what distinguishes Melmetal and Registeel, in my mind, is that electric coverage. To be honest, I'd probably drop superpower because I think it's just not me. I don't like using superpower. So yeah, I mean, Melmetal never really came into my thinking here for that reason, but I can certainly see why.
Could potentially get a little cheeky and do Rock Slide with Flash Cannon.
Yeah.
And Thundershock does charge very quickly, but the downside is it is the steel typing, so it has that amazing set of resistances. But the fire typing is legal here, so that's going to hurt. So counter tends to chew through it. But you're also, I think it's actually, you have to be under level 20 for a Great League eligible Melmetal. So you just don't really have the bulk.
Yeah, it's certainly quite fragile. Incomparable to Registeel. It's not. Yeah, there's no comparison to be drawn in terms of its bulk.
Yeah, of those 4 that you named as like the big steel typings that you wanted to after you eliminated a ton of them, Melmetal's got to be the bottom of those 4, just because of the additional typings, the defensive stats that you just don't get. Like Bastiodon is insanely defensive. It just takes forever to actually hit you, and when he does, it's not that hard, but he's just going to keep hitting you because his face is a wall.
Yeah.
Probo is a bit less on the HP side, but still has very strong defensive stats against a lot of the flying types. And then, the Spark generates a lot of good energy. Rock Slide, Thunderbolt, Magnet Bomb, all of those are very spammy. I mean, Thunderbolt, I think, is the highest energy cost at 55.
Yeah, sounds
50,
right.
Something around that range. That's still very good for the Spark generating 8 per hit.
Yeah, it's a great moveset, really versatile. So I agree. Melmetal probably bottom of the pile for me there, and Registeel stood out for beating the others. So between Registeel and Poliwrath, I can beat every combination of Dragon and Fairy, or Dragon and Steel, or Fairy and Steel, except for I can't beat Fairies mixed with an Excadrill or an Escavalier, because the Fairies will beat the Poliwrath, and the Excadrill will beat and Escavalier will beat the Registeel. Mm-hmm. So for my third pick, what I'm looking for is a pick that can cover those combinations of the Charmers and the Steel types that are going to beat me Registeel. And there's not a great deal here, to be quite honest. Ideally, you'd be looking at a Fire type, but we don't have any of those that aren't fighting.
Sure.
And they're not going to beat the Charmers, unfortunately. So what I settled on here as a sort of soft check was Community Day Beedrill.
Yep, we were on the same page for that one.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
it's got the poison jab and the poison typing, so it'll comfortably beat the Charmers.
It has such a comfortable moveset for the way they designed this meta.
Yeah.
Being able to hit 3 of the types for super effective damage.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a great pick. And then Excadrill and Escavalier. I think it beats Escavalier fairly comfortably.
I think it resists counter, so that's always solid.
Yeah, double resist counter. Although to be fair, that one, it might be a case of whoever lands a drill run first. Let's boot the sim up.
I mean, drill run's neutral to Beedrill.
Yes.
Just because the bug doesn't care so much about it, and then
Beedrill's
they're neutral to both.
Yeah.
So is Excadrill. It's only got like 110 hit points, and it's fairly attack weighted.
So Beedrill beats Escavalier in the 0s and 1s. If you get a bait, but you get 2 chances to get that bait, so that's good. And it's really close in the second, in the 2 shields. It loses just. So I can deal with that. And against, what's the other one? Excadrill.
Yep.
Again, wins in 0s and 1s. Do you need the bait? No, you don't even need the bait in 1s, I don't think.
I never actually looked at Excadrill's stats. That's
yeah, it's glassy. It's real glassy.
Yeah, I mean the moves on it are intense. Having access to Drill Run and Rock Slide.
It's ideal, isn't it? It's ideal.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, so
it needs something like, if it had Mud Shot, I'm assuming that a lot more people would run that. Mud Slap is just more direct damage.
Yeah, I mean, if you had Mud Shot on there, you're looking at a better, in terms of moveset, you're looking at a better Galarian Stunfisk. Just an offensive one rather than a sort of defensive one. That'd be mad.
Cannon Stunfisk, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, all things said and done, pretty confident about sticking Beedrill in that slot. And it can do okay against Registeel as well, opposing Registeels.
True.
Go on, sorry.
I was gonna say that's true. I mean, yeah, it stinks that some of your big sources of your damage from Beedrill is obviously the poison jabs, but Registeel just kind of shrugs it off. But then you really do have that threatening drill run.
Yeah.
It's not stab, but it's super effective. You've got the low energy X Scissor for baits, but shields down, or at least, I mean, I don't even think Flash Cannon does all that much to it. All right, it does 80.
Okay.
I mean,
So
if you can catch a
one.
Focus Blast, that would be hysterical because it's so much energy for less than 40 damage. But
Yeah, if you can time that right, good on you.
But who in their right mind learned how to count lock-ons?
Well, in Great League GBL, the team I run is Altaria, Azumarill, and Lantern. So between the two water types, one of them wants to catch Flash Cannon, and one of them wants to catch Focus Blast. So I mean, it's been a long time since Great League GBL, but I don't count the lock-ons. I count the time, and occasionally I get it right.
Yeah, I think the downside, because it's being GBL, that go battle lag
Yes.
can cause your timings to be a little off. But yeah, it looks like at least max statted. Maybe I shouldn't really sim max stats for the Beedrill Registeel matchup. Beedrill does win all even shield scenarios. The more shields you use, the less health Beedrill comes out with, but it does take at least 2 drill runs.
Yeah.
To KO, even in the zeros.
Yeah, the sim I'm looking at has Registeel winning CMP to win the one shield. But yeah, it's a comfortable matchup as long as you've got a little bit of energy with Beedrill, you'll be fine. Certainly don't be switching Beedrill in on Registeel, I don't think.
Yeah. Oh, I see. It's not so much CMP, it's that lock-on's the 1-turn fast attack.
Oh, I see.
So as Beedrill hits the poison jab to get the enough energy for the drill run, Reggie's lock-on has finished to have enough energy for a flash cannon.
Right, okay.
So if you've got the one poison jab lead, somehow, I don't know who's switching a Reggie into Beedrill, but if you have that jab lead, you'll get the drill run first.
Yeah, or if you get an X-Scissor bait as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's certainly playable. So I'm really pleased with that. Yeah. So I've got myself a sort of core of Poliwrath, Registeel, and Beedrill. I'm just writing this down, so I don't have any more long silences where words evade me.
No, that's cool. I should try to take notes on your team too.
Well, it could well change. It could well change.
I'm not doing that. I mean, we talked earlier. We actually had some very, very close and similar picks, at least for their purposes. Maybe not the exact same Pokemon, but yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, I know I want a Charmer, and while I'm in the sort of mood of thinking about these awkward steel types, feels like as good a time as any to sort of pick my Charmer. I do like Wigglytuff because it stops the Berserker being a pain. Although for the same reason, I can't see many people using Berserker, so a bit of double layered thinking there. So I'm not going to pick Wigglytuff. I absolutely adore Granbull.
Yeah.
Sort of crunch for the psychics, and more importantly, close combat for the steels. Absolutely adore Granbull, but Togekiss here is going to help me against the awkward steels that I am a bit weak to, namely Excadrill and Escavalier.
Now, do you have your rankings up too?
I do, yep.
For some reason, mine is actually I probably should have edited that. I bet you Togekiss will actually be higher. My rankings actually put Togekiss with Aerial Ace and Ancient Power. It didn't actually want the Flamethrower, but I'm assuming everybody would want. So I'm actually going to change that.
Yeah, so do mine.
See if it. Yeah, I'll keep the. I'm actually tempted to do Aerial Ace and Flamethrower. I know Charm is enough to handle a lot of the fighters, But maybe Aerial Ace is a decent bait attack for some of the steel typings because it's a lower energy, but I mean, Charm generates such few energy. It's really there for the hard hits. Let's see. It was rank 5 for me originally, but throwing Flamethrower and Aerial Ace.
It stayed at 3 for me. It was 3 before and 3 after for me.
Mine stayed at 5.
Ah.
With Charm, Aerial Ace, and Flamethrower. I know ours are a little different because I did change. How many? Got 8 Pokemon with move changes and additions to my rankings, and
I've just got the 1, and that's totally
yeah.
Good.
Should be 7. I'm not really sure why. I did a run through to see. I know Azumarill's banned, but I put it in there to see what the rankings would shift if Azumarill was allowed, just for poops and giggles. Yeah, it was rank 1. It was not good.
I can see that being the case. Yeah. So the rankings seem to like Togekiss, which I don't massively pay a great deal of attention to, but it's always a good sign.
The flying typing helps too.
Yeah. Well, that's specifically why I've chosen it to help with the steel types that might want to take on Registeel. Because then for those, I've got options. I can run my Charmer and my Poliwrath against them and still not be weak to dragons. Now, I don't think I'm going to run a dragon, to be honest, because I think most people will be running a fairy and a steel. But I think for those people that do choose to run Mawile, which I think there will be some, if I was running Mawile, I probably would run a dragon. Because running the dragon would entice your opponent's fairies and steals in. And Mawile, on the whole, beats all the fairies and all the steals.
Especially with Altaria legal in the meta, and it's still, mine dropped to 13th once you add in all the fairies and steals, but it's still a threat.
Yeah.
With shields, if it's not getting hit with, it's not getting spammed with ice punches, but it can shield those, and if it's not locked into a matchup with Charmers, Altaria is generally always going to be a threat.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and although Togekiss isn't the bulkiest Charmer out there, generally speaking, I'm quite happy. It's got the faster charge moves than most of the Charmers, which so if you are going to lose the other Charmers, you're going to take a shield from them, generally speaking.
Absolutely.
So that's quite nice, I think, because by the time you get to a charge move, you're going to be at low health. So even if your opponent does shield your charge move and then charm you down, you're not going to be farmed much by the next thing because you're on low health yourself.
True.
So yeah, I really like the look of Togekiss. So what was I thinking next? So that leaves me with Poliwrath, Registeel, Beedrill, and Togekiss. So at this point, I'm kind of looking at what I'm weak to. And what jumps out at me is first of all, if I think these are 4 good picks, and I'm particularly looking at the Poliwrath and the Beedrill here, outside of this being the outside of the obvious Steel and Fairy. If I think these are good picks, other people might do too, because of how they seem to fit well around the Steel and Fairies that I think people will bring. So I want something that's going to be prepared for those. And I'm also looking a bit weak to Alolan Raichu. That'll beat the Poliwrath, the Registeel, the Togekiss, and the Beedrill, I imagine, will beat it, but won't really want to. So I guess I'm looking for something now that can cover combinations of Beedrill, Poliwrath, and Raichu. Similar to how I was looking at things that covered dragons and steels, or dragons and fairies and steels and so forth. And I'm also a little weak to Registeel. I've got Poliwrath to take it on, but Beedrill and my own Registeel can't switch in.
Should be behind that energy, yeah.
Yeah, and certainly Togekiss doesn't want to be stuck against Registeel.
No.
Yeah, so I'm looking for something that will take Registeel, Beedrill, Poliwrath, and Alolan Raichu. And what I thought fit that role quite nicely was Claydol. Ground typing, wonderful, because it's going to make the Volt Switches from a Lowland Raichu null and void.
True. You do have to be wary of a possible Grass Knot.
Yeah.
But the suggested movesets on here are pushing for at least Pure Electric or possibly running Psychic as a backup.
Yeah. And I think I checked the Sims, and even with Grass Knot, I think unless it's got Thundershock, it's not getting to the Grass Knots fast enough. And Claydol's bulky. Claydol's really bulky. So it can tank one as well, fairly comfortably.
I liked Claydol a lot for a couple of the Season 2 metas. I think I ran it a lot in Sinister and what was the other one? Rose? I think it was legal in Rose.
Certainly Sinister, it was a great modding. I started it early on. With Claydol, and I actually started early Sinister with Theraphon as well, back when Bullet Seed was bad, because I thought Claydol was going to be so good that everyone would just jump on it. I wanted to be prepared for that, and then people just didn't. I mean, plenty of people ran it, but it didn't get half as popular as I was expecting it to.
Which could be good. Keep it under the radar.
Yeah, for sure. But then that doesn't do my Ferrothorn any favors in that situation. Certainly not when people were dropping Power Up Punch on Poliwrath either, because it could. When Poliwrath was running Power Up Punch, Ferrothorn would outspam it, and it was quite nice to have a Steel type that would beat the fighting.
Mm-hmm.
But then when Dynamic Punch was the favoured option, that was the Ferrothorn coffin.
That was after they nerfed the Power Up Punch, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah. I think it took people. Sorry, go on.
I was gonna say, I knew a lot of people opted for the Power Up Punch variant even after the nerf if they were running Bubble, because of the bubble damage increase for like the Alolan Marowak was obviously solid.
Yeah. I guess in that situation, Ferrothorn will still do fine. I was seeing more mud shots than bubbles, even though mud shot was legacy. But anyway, I digress. So Claydol. Nice for the type into Wall Raichu to some extent. Not sure whether I'm going to run Confusion or Mudslap. Yeah,
was going to ask, because they're both very viable.
Absolutely. So Mudslap gives it better matchups versus Raichu and Registeel. Confusion gives it better matchups against Beedrill and Poliwrath.
True.
So
and then you've got Earth Power and Psychic.
Yeah.
Relatively similar energy costs. And then, of course, the benefit is a lot of people have been flexing Claydol in. I know we were actually just talking about this in the gym chat before, that Claydol was being picked up a little bit in Sorceress, having the Mud Slap to try to chew through a lot of those dark poisons that... Dark Pulse from Alolan Muck hurts. If you have shields, at least the Mud Slaps are just going to chunk through it. But yeah, this pick intrigues me. It never actually hit my radar. If I'm going to be completely honest. And then, having the option of both Confusion and Mudslap, it's really a guessing game if you're going to try to switch into it. Did I bring the right one, or am I going to get chunked by the wrong fast attack?
Yeah.
So and actually, I like this a lot.
Yeah, and it's a guessing game that has no downside for me either, because I'm using it to beat Registeel, Beedrill, Poliwrath, and Raichu, which, generally speaking, is going to do fine against most of them with either charge move. So yeah, that's a really nice situation for me to be in. I haven't decided which move I'm going to run on it, and I probably won't this video. But that's only pick number 5. So I think
only.
Yeah. So what's interesting is what fast move I run on that might depend on what my 6th pick is. I'll be honest. When I first looked at Claydol, I saw Confusion. Because I really wanted to cover the Beedrill and the Poliwrath well, and I saw the ground typing as an almost auto win against Raichu, and a solid out versus Registeel. So Confusion is what I'm currently thinking, but by no means is that set in stone. It's just started raining really heavily. It'd be interesting to see whether the microphone picks that up. Yeah. Wow.
No,
So
I'm not hearing it.
okay, that's good.
Oh, wow. So my original Sims wanted Poliwrath to go Mud Shot, Power Up Punch, Ice Punch, and I switched it to Dynamic Punch, Ice Punch, and it soared in the ranks too.
Right. I'm just going to check out the Claydol Registeel match with Confusion, because that could be an interesting one.
Yeah, it changed a lot for me, actually. Reggie went down for what I've got. A couple of my picks seem a little better. I like it. That's another thing. With this meta, the custom metas that we've been putting into here, a lot of times, I'm not sure if you've actually tried this, but I've been noticing this more when I'm trying to research some of these. If you pull up any of the actual matchups, and it'll say like Togekiss, obviously a key loss is like Probopass, but some of the wins that it'll notice for stuff like Hypno. Hypno's a great option or example. If you pull up some of the key wins for Hypno, it says like it wants it to use Confusion, Fire Punch, and Psyshock as like a fun one with that. But if you actually go into the Sims, this is, let's see, key wins Metacham. You open it up, it'll actually change the move set.
Yeah, strange. Really odd.
It swaps Medi to counter Dynamic Punch and Power Up Punch, which definitely not what you want on your Metacham.
No.
And then Hypno, even though it's suggesting and saying Confusion, Fire Punch, Psyshock, you open it up, it's back to Shadow Ball, Thunder Punch. so definitely weird. I know PB Poke obviously formulates everything for their Sylph Cup metas, but this is something that definitely want to make sure we're looking into for our picks.
Yeah. So I've just looked at the Claydol Registeel match. With Earth Power, you win in the 2 shields. But with Earthquake, and going straight, that's got a bait involved. With Earthquake, you win the 1s, straight Earthquake.
Wow.
You lose the 2s because you don't quite get to the 3rd move that you need before the Flash Cannon. So perhaps if you were running Confusion, Earthquake and Earth Power would be the way to go, just to cover the 1s and the 2s situation. So that's some food for thought, because I guess when you take it on Poliwrath and Claydol, Poliwrath and Beedrill, or the fighters and the poisons, more broadly, Confusion plus Earth Power is probably fine. Don't necessarily need the big Psychic to hit them. Could leave me a bit short against Altaria. But
yeah, Mud Slap on Altaria is definitely not where you want to go to.
No, definitely not. So there's the 5th pick, Claydol. Now the 6th pick, I have no idea what I want. So I'm hoping you can help me out here a little bit.
All right, let me pull my notepad back up. So we've got, just to recap what we've got. You've got Togekiss, Registeel, Poliwrath, Claydol, and Beedrill.
Yeah, and for now we can assume that Claydol's got all the moves it could possibly have, because I'm really undecided, and we can cross moves off Claydol later. So my initial thought is that if Claydol's going to struggle with Registeel, on the assumption that I'm running Confusion, I kind of want another Registeel counter. So I'll be looking at a fighting type, and I've not really got anything that wants to take on my opposing Claydols. So I've been looking at a fighting type that beats Claydol, so Scrafty jumps out.
Does, yeah.
I've also thought about Xylos, which can beat Registeel in the 2 shields if it really has to. And it'll beat Claydol, it'll beat the Psychic types, and what I like about Xylos is the fact that it'll encourage my opponents to play with the fairies and their steels, which are essentially what I'm building my team around. My opponent is using fairies and steels. So Xylos would be more bench pressure. Yeah, I don't know. What, have you got any thoughts?
The only one that seems real risky. Galvantula intrigued me just for the fast-charging Bug Buzzes, which is going to be decent against Claydol. But the fact that Volt Switch, if the Claydol is a Mud Slap, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
as like Galvantula matchups, so that might be out the door.
Yeah.
And it's so I see a lot of good picks as options, but it's going to cause you to have to rework the team again because some of the steals or fairies don't seem all that bad, but there's no way that any of these picks to kind of improve some of these other back-end matchups are going to end up actually being better overall than Registeel.
No, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Like one pick that really intrigued me that I know it's real bad against fighting, but Alolan Sandslash having the fast-charging bulldozes and ice punches. So it's decent against the dragons. It's got the bulldozes for the steals, and it's just super fast and has like so many resistances. But being so weak to fighting, that's counterintuitive.
Not, to be honest, not something I'd given much thought to, but I used it in Fusion Cup, I think it was, where it was double types only, and it was amazing in Fusion Cup.
Yeah, I still have nightmares about it from Toshi running it as a very strong. He somehow managed to. I would lead a Alolan Marowak with Fire Spin into his Sandslash, and I would still lose. Yeah, if you delete this video because you now think I'm a total scrub, that's perfectly fine. But like, that's just a credit to him that I could crush the lead. He'd swap, still manage to pull stuff out of nowhere. But Alolan Sandslash, it's been on my want list for a very long time to try to get a better PvP one, and it's kicking me that I didn't get the Savari Zone ticket that actually had them in the wild. I think it was Philly. I don't remember. I know a lot of people got good ones, but yeah, that's on my radar. And it was a consideration for this particular meta, because we were talked about before, there's very limited fire damage, and it being double weak to fire and double weak to fighting, that's not the best, but if you could protect it, it's not too bad. The problem is protecting it.
Yeah, and I think as well, I think sometimes double weaknesses can be a bit misleading. Like, yeah, you're double weak to fighting, but you're stealing, unless you're running Skarmory, your steel type isn't beating fighting types anyway. So sometimes, I mean, it's nice to avoid the double weakness, don't get me wrong, but sometimes I kind of just write it off as a trade-off. You know, it's got the positives, like you say, with the spammy bulldoze. I'd see that as a fair trade-off, I think.
The only ones I can think of, like the wild picks of Bronzong and Jirachi, it depends on the fighter. Then those steel types could potentially beat them, but it's more of a energy advantage, shielding scenarios that could become a little different. But then if you run into the Scrafty as the fighter, it doesn't matter that you're a steel typing. It's got foul play stabbed.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean,
another thing I was looking at, again, one of my favorites from Cups gone by was Slowbro.
Oh God, you're one of those enthusiasts.
With Water Gun, because it resists everything that Registeel can throw at it. It'll take on Poliwrath. It'll take on Claydol, which
the Water Gun Claydol is a nice touch too.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it'll take on most Confusion users because it'll be eating Confusion damage that it's resisting, and it'll be hitting back neutrally.
And it's got Ice Beam.
Yeah, and now I don't know what Mawile would be running, but if it's running, I mean, Bite Mawile would be a serious issue. But if Mawile runs Fire Fang, which I would expect it would, to give it a better matchup against the Charmers.
You got a good matchup there, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. That's a solid idea. Yeah, actually, the rankings I've got, it's way down near the bottom at 104, but it's suggesting Water Gun, Psychic, Ice Beam. The big losses for it are Kingdra.
Fine.
I don't project to see a lot of.
Yeah.
Ferrothorn, which also not really expecting a lot of, though it has some great typing. Alolan Executor.
Hey, I've not considered that. I love Alolan Executor.
Yeah, and the Bullet Seed buff isn't half bad. But it's extremely weak to ice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Loses to Zweilous and Scrafty too, which I think it would be the only ones on the key losses page that seem to be like prominent picks for this particular meta.
Yeah.
Wow, Slowbro.
And what's interesting here is that Well, a neutral ice beam does more than a stab water pulse. Actually, that's horrendous. But you need water pulse for Registeel. So I'd probably run ice beam just because it's good. And in the shields down scenario, you're taking on it. Scrafty, even with foul play, the foul play does 80 damage out of 140 health. So it has to land 2 or get to a power up punch as well. So you're leaving the Scrafty low, which don't get me wrong, I'm not running Slowbro, or I'm not potentially running Slowbro as a Scrafty counter, but
you'd be insane to try that.
Yeah, but it's not a disastrous matchup to be caught in, which is always nice for a bad matchup. Yeah, so it's an option. I think really that the 6th pick on most teams, by the time you get down to your 6th pick, I don't know whether you find the same, but you've kind of, if anything really jumps out at you to begin with in the meta, you've sort of picked it by then, and you're sort of building around it. So I think Scrafty is possibly the best option that we've discussed. But I think Galvantula is a great shout.
It's got, I mean, even with like Discharge in this, it's very spammy and for the most part neutral. I mean, it's obviously really helps your matchup against any potential Skarmory picks.
Yeah.
It having access, I think Cross Poison is a terrible move, but to kind of help with fairies, it's not really the most ideal backup. Plus, you've got Registeel. Registeel should be enough to counter that. Plus, the Beedrill. So we could easily rule out Cross Poison. It also has access to Energy Ball, which can help in the matchup against. If you're in against the Poliwrath, you're obviously going to run you have to slap it with Discharge. But the Claydol matchup, Energy Ball could throw it for a nice surprise factor.
Yeah, I think back in Toxic Cup, so this was before Energy Ball was good. I was running Energy Ball as the secondary move on my Galvantula, just in case I got caught up against a Steelix or a Flygon or a Piloswine, because I mean I practiced without it, and I just never hit the Bug Buzz, or very rarely hit the Bug Buzz. And I remember once being in the last face-to-face tournament I did before lockdown and all these measures. I came up against someone who trapped my Galvantula in with his Piloswine, and he looked chuffed with himself. So I made sure I was watching when the Energy Ball went through and wiped him out. It was great.
That's dirty. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think there's merits for all of Scrafty's moves, all of Galvantula's moves. One might even argue that that was very British, wasn't it?
No wonder it went over my head.
You might even argue that, given that there isn't a huge deal that's weak to Discharge here, and your opponent's going to assume you're in Discharge, you might even argue that you don't need Discharge, because I mean, the Volt Switches are doing a lot of damage against the Registeel. Discharges aren't super effective, so
they're just really low energy, so it's nice to be able to spam them. Yeah.
So let's have a look what it's like with Bug Buzz against Registeel. I'm sure it'll probably lose because of that, but so straight Bug Buzz, you still beat Registeel in 2s. Yeah.
Oh, what kind of a world do we live in?
and you come out with 44 energy as well, so yeah.
So you're almost ready for something else.
Yeah. So it could be an option. I mean, mad one, but by all means consider it.
I mean, you've met most of the people in our little group here. I feel like somebody's going to watch this, be intrigued, and then beat us with some of our lucrative ideas here.
But that's the thing with these. That's why I think the beauty of these metas, where there isn't like miles and miles of articles written about them on Reddit, and there's no hundreds of infographics with arrows pointing in places they shouldn't be pointing, pasted all over the internet. So
yeah, instead they just got us.
Yeah. 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 So I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And for the sake of completing this video and the little bar down the side, I'm going to put Scrafty in for now. But when this tournament kicks off, don't be surprised if you see something else in the 6th slot instead of Scrafty, because that would leave me with double fighters. Although it leaves me with one fighter that's good against confusion. So there's a bit of variance there.
Yeah, it actually would make people guess, like, do I have to bring my Charmer, because Charm will be good against both, or do I only need to bring my Confusion user, or do I need to bring both? And then you've got the option of, I don't care, I brought something completely that you weren't expecting it. So
yeah,
I like it. I mean, we have one, possibly two of the same picks for our teams. I know we discussed before, like the Beedrill and the Scrafty are very strong contenders for my team as well, but the rest are pretty different. But that's what makes this a lot more enjoyable. We're not running into the same, 5 Pokemon from the same teams with one flex pick that does the same role as whatever the other person had. It just happens to have a different name. That's what makes this really fun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think it's nice as well because in the Sylph methods, team building is half the battle really, and it can be easy to sort of fall victim of groupthink. And if you see everyone out on the internet saying, "Oh, Bronzong's awesome," it can be right. Let's run Bronzong. And I think sort of team building in a sort of vacuum like this can bring up options that you might not have given thought to otherwise. So I think it's something, whenever new metas are released in Sylph, it's something I always try and do first before I look at anything. Well, I use PvPoke, of course, to sort of figure out what's generally good.
Yeah, but before everybody just piles their teams out there, like the pre-GBL Sylph Arena Reddit page used to be just flooded, and I liked it. I thought it was actually kind of nice. I wish it would go back to that instead of what can I do to improve my GBL team.
Yeah.
But it was always the rate my teams.
Yeah, that's, for me, that's part of the fun. That's most of the fun, honestly.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, it's lovely doing lots of tournaments, but certainly now I'm furloughed and locked down, and there's no reason for me not to do 11 tournaments a month, and that's great. But by the time you get to 6 or 7, you're kind of like, yeah. But to be fair, it's not been as bad this month purely because of how much I adore Quillfish. It's not been something I've struggled with, but
yeah. Your last video about Sorcerer's Cup, I watched that one, and that was basically what we were just saying. Like, I wouldn't have really considered Quillfish all that much until your video, because of all of the simplified meta guides and all the PvPokes ranks that didn't really give it the time of day, and it actually turns out to be a fairly strong pick.
Yeah.
I liked Quillfish. I know it was a nightmare for me to deal with in previous metas, like Twilight. It was actually fairly strong in there too, because there wasn't a lot of confusion, and like the best big counter to it was Toxicroak's Mud Bombs. I mean, not a lot of people ran Venusaur back then, and it's just neutral Frenzy Plants. But yeah, Quillfish was a nice touch, and if it wasn't for like individually made content like this, or like the rate my team posts, because you think like, I've got a good one, I want to use it because it's eligible for this, a lot of people might overthink a lot of potential sleeper picks, such as Quillfish.
Yeah. I remember for Voyager Cup, I remember reading a Rate My Team post on Reddit, and it was someone who had built around Garchomp.
I saw that one too.
And
that was wild.
Yeah, it was just genius, like absolutely genius. Yeah, I thought we need more of that,
Yeah. I would love to watch that, because I think he actually had some videos with it too, where he just runs something that's fairly bulky to kind of help burn their shields, and then Garchomp can just crush with I don't know if he ran Sand Tomb, but he might have just for a bait move. But
Yeah,
Sand
I think
Tombs
it
and
was, yeah.
Outrage with
Yeah.
Mudshot, its attack stats through the roof. So even like a neutral or possibly even slightly resisted Outrage, it's gonna hurt.
For sure. And I think I don't know. I don't know how much you've looked at Catacomb Cup yet. I think there's a few things knocking about in there that I've left off all these meta guides and stuff. That
I'll save that for another talk. I have some ideas. I don't know if I want to broadcast them out. I'm not trying to claim myself to be like some meta-breaking thinker, but given how like the top picks and the lacking typings of damage out there, obviously everybody looks at Umbreon, but there's some other things that are out there that I feel can complement Umbreon in ways that people are going to look at the rankings and possibly not click. Yeah. So I'm excited for Catacombs, and I'm really hoping to push for that pin because that enamel pin looks awesome.
Yeah, it looks great. Well, I'll tell you this. I'm on draft 5 of my Catacomb team, and I've not
5.
Yeah. Admittedly, a lot of it's just been small changes. I've not done much practice. I've done, in fact, in total, I've done 1 practice battle. It's been all theory up to now. But I've not had Umbreon in my draft since draft 1. I'm really not sure. I'm really not sure about it.
So you just discredited your own video here by saying something so bold like that.
Yeah.
I've got 10 picks right now for Catacombs set aside. Looking at my thing here, and I'm not maybe 11. Not 100% sold on them, but maybe we'll sit down and talk those too, because I think there's a lot of possibilities for comfortable Catacomb picks that can even. All right, I'll go with you on this. There is a chance you can build a solid team without Umbreon. I just don't know what kind of 7-0 sweeps you're looking for without that. It's such a strong pick. That's my only thing. It's hard to replace, but I'm not saying it's not doable.
Yeah. You can just in almost any circumstance where you're not sure what to use, stick Umbreon in. We'll see. I'll do practice tournaments without it, and we'll see how it goes. I think that's the best way of testing it, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm assuming Jim will run a one-night practice one like we usually do in the early part of the month once we're done with Sorceress.
Yeah, well, I would have thought so. But
hoping so we can get some practice.
Yeah, they've left it quite late to release it this time, haven't they? Yeah. Well, let's leave it there then before we stray too much off topic. So, yeah, hopefully people find this useful. I know when we were talking before, you and I have sort of gained some ideas off each other, which has been handy. But whilst also being on a similar track, which is nice. I think if Jim continues to do these monthly messages, I think it's something that I'm interested in continuing doing, these sorts of videos. So I think, as we were saying, I think it's nice. The enjoyment I get out of team building, I'd like other people to get that as well, you know?
Yeah, especially with these thought-provoking metas like this. And I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure we have custom metas until the end of the year already planned. I mean, you know that we do some of them are the drafts. I think we have a draft coming up soon. Those can be fun. It can also be a big headache depending on how many members are involved. So, like, I think last draft I got like 3rd or 4th pick, and there was like 18, 19 people in there. So it takes a while to loop around.
Yeah.
But it was fun. That interactive meta where everybody makes up rules, and that's going to be a real nightmare to deal with. But it's always something. And I know that they're planning on, they might actually be doing extras in the months that Sylph is off. So we'll have plenty of options for content to make a lot of fun for these participants. Nice.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I've only just got into gym really, so looking at seeing the wonders unfold.
I know we joked a lot in the chats a lot, but it's really cool that you joined. I'm glad that you're on board and that you're actually very dedicated to this instead of just we had a lot of people come and go where it's like, oh yeah, we're hosting these online tournaments that are pushing like 6-7 rounds, which back when it was just physical stuff was really difficult to do. You'd have to go to like a battle tower, but now it's still very fun to do, even with the friend restrictions down and being able to just do a 7-rounder every other day. It's a really good and fun community.
Absolutely, yeah, it's really good. I think a lot of the people in there I sort of know from in-person tournaments as well. So as soon as I sort of joined and saw the list of names, I thought, yeah, this will be a good group. So, yeah. Well, let's leave it there. Thanks for joining, and I'll tell you, why don't we? I assume you'll be recording your battles from this tournament.
Yeah. Assuming since it'll be a one night. I might even stream it onto the group page.
Cool.
But likely I'll definitely do some recordings of mine, so I can share them with you if you'd like.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how our teams do in this. Having from team building from scratch. Yeah, that's something we'll have to look into, I'm sure.
Yeah, especially after we compared some of our pick ideas originally. Like obviously, I still have a couple that are up in the air with the psychics or the fairies, and then they're ultimately the move sets.
Yeah,
but
lots of things still to work out.
I would gladly collaborate with that. That'd be a lot of fun.
Great. Look forward to it then. Well, thanks once again, and catch you later.